Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's 12:44 p.m. my time, which is 1 hour behind Eastern Standard Time now, so fairly simple. And I'm here again to do the Talamanca Review. It's Wednesday, the 12th of November. And I'm feeling pretty good about, the podcast. It's always difficult after you take a little time off. I don't know what it is. I start thinking about it too much. When they were building New York in the early 20th century, the early 1900s, most of the high steel workers up there were Mohawks, Canadian Mohawks. Not a lot of people know that. They're not really remembered in history. That's something Donald Trump would know, I promise you that. And the Mohawk people are born with no fear of heights. And that's why they're really good at high steel work. They weren't all Mohawks, but a disproportionate number of them were. They were the largest representative ethnicity. But there is this thing in high steel where you could do it for years. Show up every morning, get off the elevator, walk out onto the construction platform 40 floors above the ground, and then walk off the platform across a 12 or an 18-inch wide steel beam. And, you're looking down like, 10 feet per floor? So 40 floors would be 400 feet up. That's half a kilometer. And some days people could do this job for years, and then one Monday morning, they get off the elevator, they go to put their foot out onto the girder. They can't do it. They freeze up, and their career's over. Suddenly, the fear of heights comes. And that's what it's like every time I stop doing the Talamanca Review for a week or so. When I step back out, you get these short podcasts of about 20, 25 minutes. And that's me just getting used to doing it again. And then another thing that happens is I start getting a lot of comments, okay? Especially if I'm like throwing bullseyes. A lot of people just, oh my goodness, there's a problem here. Hang on a sec. There we go. And then I get a lot of messages from people, and I really do enjoy the messages. Like, don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. But that makes me more self-conscious. And I think, oh, that was a really good one. About 12, 14 people reached out to me with 200, 300 long messages on WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, Substack, YouTube. And I'm going, oh, I'm not going to be able to repeat that. I'm not going to be able to do another good one like that. I got lucky. And really, it's me struggling with the idea that a higher spiritual force is helping me do these podcasts. And when I surrender to it, the podcast is wonderful. And when I think it's me doing it, I run into all kinds of problems, right? It's like, and same thing when you're writing a book. I tell people, and any writer will tell you the same thing. Cormac McCarthy hated talking about writing because there's simply no way of explaining where it comes from. And really, the truth is, this is part of the spiritual nature of man. That everything good comes through us. It's not the product of an ego. The ego, the mind, the personality can be trained to do certain things, like work a cash register, scan packages at a grocery store, beep, 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 beep. Yeah, your total's 140. That's all mental. There's no inspiration required. But it's also very interesting that the things that we find the most satisfaction in life are in fact the things that are really not us, that are like us in a state of prayer or meditation or contemplation, a state of almost like a trance state. And it just comes through. It's very similar to the writing process, except with podcasting, you don't get a chance to edit. But because it's spoken word, there isn't as much editing required because conversation is very forgiving. Okay? Because you're hearing it and you're doing it through your ears, you're not doing it through your eyes. And conversation is much more forgiving than than the written word. The written word is like, if you take the time to write something down, people are going to go, they're going to criticize it, right? Oh, I like that book. I didn't like that book. I like that essay. And when you're in college, and when you raise your hand to answer a question, there's no consequence. You're either right or you're wrong, or you're partially right, and the professor has a conversation with you. But you write a midterm for that same course, and you get graded. And so the pressure is always on the written word, right? Podcasting is something completely different. And I have to be completely relaxed to do it well. Like yesterday's was, the last 2 or 3 have been pretty good. Pretty good. I'm in the zone again, And I don't know where it comes from. I mean, well, I've just explained it. I do and I don't. And it's very similar to the entire notion of life itself and all of its expression in religions and all of life's expressions in spiritual teachings. And that is that we don't really achieve anything until we surrender and give ourselves up. Isn't that interesting that the only thing preventing us from extraordinary accomplishment and extraordinary and miraculous things is us. We can't get ourselves out of the way. Yeah, recently I've been rewatching a lot of the drama that really impacted me as a storyteller. And a lot of it's not coming from literature anymore. A lot of the best writing out there is in television and subscriber television. Because it's like a movie, but they tell it a certain way. And you get like 6 or 8 hours of programming. It's like an 8-hour movie. They did that in 2014. The best example I've ever seen of it is True Detective Season 1 with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Now I'm gonna make a bold statement here. I would say that one season of television is finer, better, and much more important for people who love drama. And I love drama. I'm a writer, and drama is the balancing of polarities, right? You have to have 2 things in conflict with each other for there to be drama. Therefore, I often say that life is a story, that we are God's stories because we are the drama that God learns from. Because it's, as this creation goes out, God is learning, okay? It's just people don't understand this. They think that God is a fixed thing. God is not a fixed thing. God is constantly learning, constantly growing, and learning from us. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's not all, the groveling stuff that you get in the Lord and my Lord this and my Lord that. That's generally the signature frequency of Anunnaki or Nordic or Palladian interference with the human race, because when you refer to them as Lord, you're giving them your energy and they want your energy. You see, you can almost think of the galaxy as like New York City, where every street corner there's somebody trying to hustle you or sell you something, whether it be a hot dog, a sausage, some other kind of street meat, or DVDs they're selling off a table, but there's always this unending presence of potential transactions in large urban centers, right? Not just New York, all large urban centers. And people are hoping for transactions that are mutually beneficial. And that principle of transaction, it just keeps going. It's not limited to Earth. The only thing that changes is the currency. Okay, so on planet Earth, the currency is money. Really any kind of money, as long as it's indexed and it can be exchanged into the currency you want. But principally speaking, it's money. But when you get out into these relationships with other beings, the exchange is energetic. And human beings are energetically rich beings. Okay? This is something that they're not properly explaining, in my opinion, in the disclosure movement. You know, in fact, a lot of people get it backwards. They think that the extraterrestrials are super advanced and they're way beyond us and all of this, and it's just not true. Okay, it's just not true. And in fact, many of the extraterrestrial races have what I would call energetic deficiencies, which means that the state they're living in, or the domain that they're living in, cannot give them access to energy the way we have access to energy. And energy is God. God is energy. God is light, magnetism, and electricity. In the manifest worlds, the mental, the mnemonic, the sensual, and the physical, this is the energy of God. And then the question becomes, well, where does that energy come from? And when people experience the energy in a finer form, even if it's slightly finer than physical form, like astral, they immediately think, well, I've discovered heaven. No, it just keeps going and going and going and going into finer and finer gradations of energy. And the astral is not that big a deal at all. But it is right now, because we're going through this epic thing now, where human consciousness en masse is going through the astral. And we're going through the astral because consciousness is being prepped to resonate with the dimension that circumscribes the astral. So when you think of dimensions, in classical esoterica, we present them as a hierarchy going up, but that's not really how they work. They're all in the same space. They're just at subtler vibrations. So it's a vibration inside a vibration inside a vibration. So reality is a chain of vibrations beginning from the most subtle at the Godhead to the coarsest at the physical. Okay? And every transaction is a vibrational exchange, even if it's like a lion taking down a gazelle on the Serengeti plain. That's an energetic transaction. And here in our 3D reality, the energetics of our existence is all related to predation. It's impossible to exist independently, directly from energy from a higher source to maintain these bodies. Some people would contradict me. There are examples of advanced contemplatives who stopped eating and lived for 20, 30, 40 years. There are examples of that. I'm not making this up. But for the average human being, for 99.9 to the power of 10 of us, it's not possible. We have to get our energy, right? And so you could make the case that all of morality is energetic ethics. What energy is it ethical for us to consume? Okay, so when when we harvest and butcher a cow for the meat, do human beings have the ethical right to do that because the cow is also existing? Right? The cow has a life. And a lot of people on the planet, the whole vegetarian crowd, they would tell you, no, we don't have the right to do it. They would even go so far to say that it is a karma generating event. Now, in a sense, they're right. But the truth is, there's no way to live down here without generating karma. So you have to find your own ethical and moral equation that allows you to exist, stay healthy, that ensures that your body gets everything that it needs, and that you're not violating or transgressing the existence of other things. Now, I will say this. I think corporate farming in all forms, whether it be agriculture or livestock, I think corporate farming is immoral. I think there's a lot of things that we should be doing outside of a profit motive, that we should be doing ethically. I think applying the capital model to everything doesn't work. In fact, I think the capital model only can be applied to innovation, like creating new things. It was the capital model that brought us the iPhone, the Samsung Galaxy, PlayStation, flat screen TVs, plasma TVs, all of these things, automobiles, everything that was part of the inventive era of the United States. They're all part of the capital model. But as we move through this, like really beginning in the 50s, and we started to corporatize everything, okay? Which, by the way, was all part of the plan, okay? So don't think that, we are morally corrupt or anything like that. I mean, but again, this is extending on yesterday's podcast, which was talking about similar things, right? And how we ethically live here. And I've come to the conclusion, it's just me, and I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, the decision or the conclusion is going to be different and for everybody, and nobody has the right to say the way somebody else is doing something is wrong. But eventually, if what you're doing is wrong, the negative vibrations that you're sending out into the causal field as a result of the negativity you're practicing, even if you're unconscious of it, will come back to you in a deleterious way. And it's then up to your contemplative ability, the ability of your awakened imagination, to connect the cause and the effect, which a lot of people can't do. Okay? And one of the reasons that you want to begin a contemplative life and you want to begin meditating and you want to begin the practice of stillness is it advances this ability to make connections between things. And at a certain point, you get really, really good at it. Really good at it. So in my life, I'm really, really good at it. And sometimes when I try to explain myself to the people I live with here, they can't follow the dots. They can't, like, well, that's crazy. What are you talking about? Like, for example, I know when I commission my brother-in-law Stephen to do something, there will always be negative collateral involved because it has to do with the way Stephen thinks, feels, vibrates, and resonates in reality. It's inevitable, And I mean, he's doing a good job on the house. He's really slowed down on the ceramics, though. A professional tile layer would have been done 2 weeks ago. He's been on it 3 weeks now. Okay. I appreciate that he's trying to do a good job for me and everything and get it really right. And because tiling there's a bit of an art form to it. There are professional tilers. That's all they do. Right. And North Americans, you guys, unless you're living in like one of the hot arid areas like New Mexico or Arizona, you don't see a lot of tile. It's not part of the construction process in North America for the most part. We prefer either wood floors with rugs on them or carpet, and carpet laid on top of a 1/4 inch foam, right? That's the way we roll at our feet. Over here, and in most parts of the world, the Middle East, Asia, Central America, South America, ceramic tile is huge, huge. And there's a whole field involved around it, okay? And also, what happens when you get to a higher vibration is there are times I have to mute myself. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, I have to mute myself and lower my vibration because the consequence of the person interacting with me might be too grave. Okay? Like, so every single time I contract Stephen to do something, whether it was the back balcony around the pool and around, and or whether it's this new house, ill fortune visits him. And to the best of my observation, and I get all the news up here, when he's not working for me, everything goes right. Okay? So his helper, my nephew Danny, his wife Vanessa's son from another man, but all her kids moved to the mountain. And they hit a certain age and they left their father. And Vanessa, and he lives way up north in another province. And they all came here. And so, you know, I promised my wife that I would help Stephen take care of these kids. Not by handouts, but by, if I had work, he would be my first option. Even though in an ideal world with consumer choices, that would not be the case. Stephen would not be my first option, okay? But because I'm living differently here, and I have to accommodate the way things are done here, because I'm not the center of the universe, I'm not the holy fucking Roman Empire, I'm not the British Empire, I'm not American imperialism here. I'm not here to conquer and re-educate people. I'm here to integrate because I left a society I considered to be dysfunctional. And if you're looking at Canada these days, you'll find no argument in most people that it is profoundly dysfunctional, right? What am I talking about today? I don't even have a clue. But that's just the way it goes. I'm getting somewhere and we're going to get there. So it's a beautiful gray day here now. Like you can't see 100 meters into the horizon. It's just gray, cloudy, and a drizzle. Like classic rainforest. This is a good day to go walking in the rainforest because you don't really get wet because the jungle canopy is so dense the drizzle doesn't hit you. Only when you come out into clearings or when you're walking along the side of a river or something like that. So the house is coming along quite nicely. And I mean, the ceramic is the second last big job. And then I got to do a drop ceiling. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do gypsum or Durock, right? Which is like gypsum, but more waterproof. And, you know, over years, you're going to get little leaks in the tin roof. So it's better to do gypsum. But I'm really enjoying the project. And I'm really enjoying everything that's going on here. And I'm very grateful. And I try to be expressive of that gratitude, you know. I try to live it. I try to express it. I try to make myself a useful human being in everything that's going on over here. Another big thing over here is the hand-me-downs. So I got myself an iPhone 14 now. I got this for my wife, but she didn't like it because it only takes an eSIM. And I was using an iPhone 13. I don't mind the eSIM at all. I have a Canadian voice over IP number that is perfectly functional. And as long as I have an internet connection, it's fine. That's my primary number. And I I stack like $20 a month on the eSIM for when I'm traveling so I can use Waze and all of that stuff. And I'm fine. And my wife has another phone coming in on, I think, Friday. My son's friend is here with his mom, and they're going to spend a few days with us, maybe longer. And I got Rosemary an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is a really good phone. And I got it from the US for about 40% of what it would cost over here. So she's waiting for that to come in, and she's pretty happy. And then the iPhone 13, that goes to my nephew who's turning 16, Nene. And he's as happy as can be. He's never owned an iPhone before. And I mean, even at 5 years old, you can see I've got it all ready to go there to take in it's all ready to be reconfigured. And he can, I mean, even being a 5-year-old phone or so, the iPhone 13 mini, you still can't get one used over here for less than $400 US, which is what I paid for Rosemary's iPhone 14 Pro Max from the US. So he's pretty happy. He's getting that on Saturday. He's coming up for his birthday. And that's the way the cycle of life works up here, man, you know? And I have to say, a lot of the stuff that I'm learning up here and integrating with, it's funny the way Spirit, God, being will orchestrate your life, okay? Because it will focus on the things that you need to improve. And the spiritual life is not just the art of meditation and consciousness traveling, what the whack jobs in the CIA call remote viewing or any. The spiritual life is about everything. It's the physical to the spiritual, the psychic, and everything in between. And your higher being, it wants you to get better at everything. And because I was raised like a gutter pup on the streets, leaving home, a couple months, like 6-7 weeks after my 16th birthday, I was out on the street living my life. And it's always been Bruce, right? And I've never had to take care of people, and I've never been very good at it, actually, because it's always been just me. The only person I really that started to change me was my son in 1997 when he was born. And he changed my life dramatically, and I stayed in the same place for, 18 years to raise him, which is the west end of Toronto, Mississauga, which I hated, because I wanted to be downtown in the literary scene and stuff like that. But that's what I was given, so that's where I went. And and now this life here is just changing me in very, very profound ways. And I'm being forced to give more and more and more. And sometimes I fight it, and I'm a little bit selfish. But to be honest, sometimes I'm right. My wife she's like a pure feminine energy. And her what she wants to do in almost every situation is just get a person out of trouble. Okay, so, and I'm more the masculine energy, and the masculine energy is more about, oh God, I got to be careful what I say. I don't want to offend my female listeners, okay? Please don't bite my head off, okay? But the masculine energy is much more concerned with accountability, and the feminine energy is much more concerned with nurturance, okay? Without accountability. Oh, Stephen missed his child support payment again. The police are looking for him. How can we help him? And, my wife, obviously, when she says something like that to me, she's looking for money. And my response is, well, you can help him by letting him go to jail for 6 months. He'll never make the same mistake twice, But the feminine energy doesn't want to go along with that. And this country is ruled by feminine energy. And there's an imbalance here. So I would say North America is a patriarchy still. I mean, even with all the advancements in feminism and everything, it's still a patriarchy because the institutions that women fit into are all designed by men, and the women have to become more masculine to survive in them. So it's a patriarchy, even though we allow women to behave like men. Okay? This place, this is a true matriarchy. Okay? So what happens is, when tragedy comes, it's absolute. Because there's been so much soft love and nurturing with some of the delinquent personalities that come up in families, like getting into narco trafficking or something. Like a responsible father bringing the masculine energy in, it's kind of like, you want to live that way? Get the hell out of my house. There's no place for you here anymore. We raised you. We didn't raise you to do that. We don't want you here anymore. Okay? The feminine energy is, oh my God, we can't send him out into the world. He's not ready. He needs his mother. And no, he's ready. I mean, if he's ready to get into the narco trafficking business and carry a gun, he's ready for the world. You trust me on this. But the women here, they don't listen. And they control everything. Like I said, this is a matriarchy. This is the first bona fide matriarchy I have ever lived in. And I'm not criticizing it. There are things about this way better than a patriarchy that the women get right. And then there's other things they get completely wrong. And what I'm wondering now is, what's the perfect balance? Is there any society in the world that has a perfect balance between men and women? And is it even possible? Okay? Now, you might think I'm crazy for saying this out loud, but I'll bet if you were to go and live in some of the Middle Eastern countries, you would find a very good balance between the feminine and the masculine. Okay? Because it's all laid out in the Quran. The roles, duties, and responsibilities to children in the Quran are given by Muhammad. This is the female responsibility in the family. This is the male responsibility. In Islam, the male is responsible for all religious instruction in the family. All the children must be properly educated in Islam and the Quran. Okay? And then the women, they have their things to do. And I'm suspecting it's probably fairly balanced, and we've been profoundly lied to about this. Okay? And the West, it has so many imbalances now when it comes to these sorts of things, men and women, that I don't know if it can even be repaired. We have to go back to a new baseline, right? And if we can continue down this transgender thing, we're finished. Okay? So when you look at things philosophically and spiritually, the answers you come up with are very unpopular when compared to popular opinion. But popular opinion is always stupid. Okay? It's always stupid. Right? This is kind of what I was talking about yesterday, about the external authority versus your own internal direction. And it's ironic. Again, irony always creeps up. Irony, when you see irony, you can almost take it as an invisible spirit speaking directly to you. Okay? It's telling you something. So, the irony of the West is we fancy ourselves the freest people in the world. But the truth is we're not that free at all. We're the most malleable, the most programmed. And yes, even compared to the Islamic countries with their Quran, we are more socially conditioned in the West. I would stand beside that. And anybody who says anything against this, and that's usually the Jewish lobby now, your Ben Shapiro's, your Dave Rubins, and all of the public-facing Jewish voices constantly proselytizing this idea of the perfect Jewish society, which is always imperfect, which is because they destroy every society they end up being a diaspora population in, and they're on the cusp of destroying Israel because they're a destructive people, because they can never find a stasis. Okay, this is one of the things about Jews. I'm not picking on Jews. I mean, I could, there's a lot of things wrong with the Christian culture as well. But one of the things about culture is it's very difficult to change them. They just kind of keep It's like people don't like change that much. We're going through a lot of change now. This is what part of what the Trump mission is. It seems like when you look at what Trump's doing, it seems extremely illogical. When you look at it from a different perspective, a deeper perspective, it's completely logical. So Trump is an agent of change. And when a society gets embedded generationally in fixed ideas, agents of change always appear as chaos. Okay? So you're chaotic at first, and then after time, and your society digests what you taught them after 4, 5, 6, 7 generations, you go from chaotic to heroic. And it's the same. I mean, look what they did to Socrates, man. They poisoned him, right? Poisoned him with lie for corrupting the youth. And now Socrates and the Greek philosophy is the foundation of the entire Western rational disposition. But in his day, he was killed, right? And this idea of social organization is extremely difficult the more you get away from nature. When people live in nature, social organization is much more easy because nature is constantly teaching you. Because everything in nature is polarized between male and female. Insects, plants, everything. Everything. The abaca plant is a male banana plant. So you harvest the fiber because it produces no fruit. The female banana plant produces the fruit. Right? So many things I've learned here in the rainforest. I remember one time about 8 years ago, I was on somebody's patio, and they had free-range chickens that roamed around the house during the day. And the patio came, the chicken came right up onto the patio, and there was a water bowl for the dog, and the chicken drank from it. And I said, I've never seen that before. I didn't even know chickens drank water. And the person I was with just looked at me and went, are you an idiot? Everything in the world needs water, including chickens. And I said, yeah. Now that you say it out loud, it kind of makes sense, but I had just never seen a chicken drink water before. And there are certain mammals that can hydrate themselves through the skin. They don't actually have to ingest water. But I watched a chicken bend down, put its beak in a bowl, and take water. And in all my life, in no movie, I had never seen a chicken do that before. Right? You can see chickens. I mean, if you throw corn, you see this in the movies all the time. The farmer feeding the chickens corn, and they're going down and they're eating the kernels of corn. Very common. I've never seen it done with water. So as we go forward and we're looking to balance everything out, these periods of change are extremely important. And I have this feeling that there are what I would call self-correction models built right into the hologram. Okay? So the hologram has to have a certain energetic function or circuit. And a circuit is always circular, hence the word circle, circuit. So a circuit is always circular. So the energy always has to be moving and moving and moving around, okay? And so when the circular energy of anything is broken, it'll sustain itself for an indeterminate period of time and then collapse. It's like running a car with no oil in the engine. And we broke the circular nature of Western society sometime around 1965. Okay, so we've been crawling along now for like 60 years in this craziness, right? In this absolute craziness that doesn't make any sense. And everybody thinks it works because nothing has collapsed. And then when the collapse comes, it all happens quickly. You know, it's like that old saying about bankruptcy. You know, they say to a billionaire, how did you lose all your money? Slowly at first, and then all at once. Right? And that's the way societies collapse as well. And make no mistake about it, it is directly correlated to all this liberal experimentation that started in the 60s. We are not a sound society anymore. Okay? Because just like good podcasting requires getting your ego out of the way and just listening to your intuition and talking freely and inspirationally, that same principle of surrender is also present in a society. Society doesn't work when everybody has to be the top dog, when men and women are fighting, when races are fighting, when the old and the young are fighting. Literally every single dichotomy in Western society now is full of tension. There's no harmony. Okay? The millennials and the Gen Zs hate the baby boomers. They're figuring it all out. And I don't want to touch this subject in any great length again. It upset a number of my listeners. Certain truths are very difficult for people to hear. Okay? Self-critical truths are very difficult for people to hear, right? But at the same time, they're absolutely necessary. So, so what we're going through now is this rebalancing. And don't worry about what outsiders say. And don't worry, the Muslim world will say this is the last punishment for the misdeeds of the West and how they treated the Islamic world, and it's all bullshit. And the Islamic world is set for a collapse as well, because they're also imbalanced, okay? Every society on the planet now is imbalanced, and part of the reason that everything is imbalanced is, the age of Aquarius is coming in, and it has an entirely different energetic signature than the age of Pisces. And so there's going to be profound realignment issues, right? It's like getting your ball joints done on your car or something. You're going to have profound alignment issues. And that's what's going on now, or one of the things that's going on now. Okay? Now, the best thing you can do in a collapsing society is live from the inside out. Because if you continue to live waiting for external direction, you're going to suffer more. Okay? And just think about it. What external direction would you take from the government concerning your health after the COVID pandemic, pseudo-pandemic, and the mRNA vaccines? How can you trust them anymore? Okay? Society, especially in the first world, has become so complicated that we don't have the mechanism for policing it anymore. Right? The biggest thievery going on in the world now are not professional thieves who actually, break into buildings and crack vaults and steal diamonds and stuff like that. The greatest thievery going on in the world now is going on in the open with nobody being charged in financial centers, because they've been left on a kind of a trust model, and the Securities Exchange Commission and corollary financial police in other sectors of the first world, let's say the Five Eyes, they simply don't have the resources or the know-how. They don't know how to prosecute. They don't know how to build a case. Everybody who gets prosecuted, ultimately, somebody rats them out. There's a personal enmity, so somebody rats them out and provides evidence to get the financial investigators at the SEC or the corollary organization, wherever it is, Canada, Australia, whatever, gives them the starting point for the investigation and enough information to prosecute. Or they get accidentally found out, like Bernie Madoff, because liquidity froze, which means the fluidity of capital. So he couldn't keep paying his early investors with the money of new investors. And so the whole thing came tumbling down. And that's what happened to Bernie. But he was accidentally caught as a consequence, or as a side note to the 2007 and 2008 subprime mortgage fiasco, which I will tell you and remind you, nobody's gone to prison for. And this isn't even addressing the 21 trillion that Catherine Austin Fitts says is missing from the Western societies. And yet we continue to prosecute shoplifters, right? And we wonder why the poor are so pissed off. Because the information flow now is so thorough that you can't hide anything anymore. Okay? You can't hide anything. And, there's that great line from The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats, when the center can't hold, things fall apart. A great poem, by the way. William Butler Yeats was an incredibly visionary poet, and he wrote this poem called The Second Coming. And it talks about the time we're living in now, where everything will begin to break down. And it is breaking down, and you can see it. And you throw into the mix the internet, the flow of information. Why do you think they want to control all the information on the internet now? Okay? And then the double standards. The double standards are absolutely intolerable, right? So they're now saying that important people, elected people, and ministers and various people in the apparatus of governance, senior national policing figures and chiefs of police of district or municipal police services and politicians and ministers, and these people are not going to require digital ID because it would impede upon their safety. So here come the double standards. It's digital ID for us, but not for them. Okay? And then all of their craziness is coming out. I'm doing my very best with books like The Light of Darkness, Stardust Ranch, and The Devil in Us. I'm doing my very best to tell you, look, this is what's going on in this world. You think it isn't going on? You're just putting your head in the sand, man. And then so what happens is government has to get more and more and more authoritarian. And when they do that, the people become more and more and more rebellious. Okay, when you look at everything that's going on now, there's a certain class of people out there who might think, well, I got nothing to lose. They're going to kill me anyways. They've already tried to kill me with the vaccine. They're trying to kill me financially. They're destroying the currency of this country. What do I have to lose? Why don't I just kill 10 cops? Or why don't I just go and blow myself up at a political gathering? I'm not advising anybody do this, but I'm predicting it's going to start happening with more and more frequency. Okay, well, it already is in the U.S. The U.S. has accommodated itself to it. The endless school shootings and public shootings. I think it's got to be like a weekly or twice a week event now in the United States. Let's just, that's a good one to look up. Actually, we'll look at the statistics they have. Okay. So we'll ask Gemini. How many mass shootings were there in the United States in 2024? Let's see if I can get this right. Calculating sourcing definitions, investigating source definitions, examining shooting data. Thank you very much. Keep going, buddy. But I'll bet you it's over 100. Oh my God. Gun Violence Archive. Total in 2024, 504 mass shootings. The Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit organization that tracks incidents, defines a mass shooting as an event where at least 4 people are shot. 4. Excluding the shooter, regardless of whether they are killed. Federal Bureau of Investigation has 24 active shooter incidents, and the FBI does not use the term mass shooting. It tracks active shooter incidents, which it defines as one or more individuals actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. And it's only got 24 active shooter. That's one every 2 weeks, though. There's 52 weeks in a year, right? So that's like one every 2 weeks, twice a month. And their numbers are much lower than the mass shootings given by the Gun Violence Archive. So mass killings. Within those 24 active shooter incidents, the FBI noted that 3 of them met the federal definition of a mass killing. 3 or more people killed in a single event. So the largest discrepancy in numbers is due to the different definitions. Now, some people will come along and say, well, this is the reason. The solution to this is more regulation and regulation on gun ownership. Are you kidding me, man? Timothy McVeigh took out hundreds of people at the federal building just with gasoline and fertilizer. There's no way to stop. What you have to do is present a fair and just society that is consistent And that's the main thing. It's the inconsistency, the double standards. And I got to say, you know, people like Donald Trump and his ilk don't really help much in this particular matter, in this particular incident. Anyways, I'm just going to call this rambling on because it was a rambling podcast today. I jinxed myself by talking about podcasts at the beginning and how to do a good podcast. And I started thinking too much and I jinxed myself. But not a bad ramble. I'm Bruce McDonald and this has been the Talamanca Review.